The Auburn Tigers announced who they're taking to SEC Media Days. What does that mean? Also, let's pick all the games on the schedule. Here we go.
Well, Zach, I actually just finished crushing some chicken farm, and I am freaking ready to rock and roll.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Happy War Rapport Wednesday to all of you out there who celebrate. We're celebrating it here today as Mike G of the War Rapport hanging out with us as he does every single Wednesday. News broke yesterday, Mike G. We've all been kind of asking and speculating and playing the game, right? All right, who should Auburn take to Media Days? And I think they settled with a really strong final three guys to go with Bryan Harsin to Atlanta next week. Tank Bigsby, obviously the star running back, star edge, pass rusher, Derick Hall, and probably the most consistent player in all of college football, Samuel Shenker. Your immediate thoughts of these three guys representing Auburn next week?
Well, being chosen to go to Media Days is kind of like a rite of passage.
Yeah.
It is a signal to the league, to your opponents, to the fan base that these are the leaders on our team. These are the guys who we feel best embody the spirit of Auburn football and, the essence of the program. So, we've spoken with Samuel Shenker. He's definitely a leader on the team. Tank Bigsby obviously is a leader in a lot of ways, particularly from what we've been hearing in these workout sessions and the weightlifting sessions. He's pushing guys. He's challenging people. And Derick Hall has been pretty outspoken. These are guys who, speak well. They work hard. And being chosen by your coach to go represent your school in this fashion is something that should not be taken lightly by fans or by players. It's definitely an honor to represent in this way.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it. With Samuel Shenker and Derick Hall, they're kind of, you got to assume they're being taken for a similar reason, right? They're both outspoken publicly in defending their coach. Mm-hmm. They both kind of surprised some folks. Derick Hall surprised more of the NFL draft world than Samuel Shenker did, but both could have gotten drafted. I believe that. And they chose to come back. That surprised a lot of folks. And it really kind of helped Auburn kind of have somewhat of positive momentum over the course of the offseason as far as what are they bringing back. There's a lot of production between those two guys.
Right.
And then Bigsby is kind of on the other end of the coin. He is probably going to leave. If he doesn't leave after this season, I would be shocked. And would almost, if you told me that was happening, I'd be like, I hope something bad doesn't happen. But he's your biggest brand on this team because you don't have a starting quarterback yet. You don't have an elite wide receiver. And I just think Tank Bigsby, the name kind of sells itself. And with SEC Media Days becoming the national spectacle that it has become, you got to have Tank Bigsby on the field. I imagine that was the thinking of all of this. So I think they all make sense for a little bit different reasons.
Yeah, listen, you take your leaders, and Tank Bigsby is our best player. Right. So being able to signify to people that your best player is also a leader on the team is a big deal. I think it's telling when teams leave their best player behind for Media Days and then take somebody who's just kind of a spokesperson or behind the scenes guy in place of your best player. So it's really
there's different roles, right? There's different roles to this. And this is kind of why I thought Owen Pappoe would go again. That was the biggest surprise to me, is that Owen Pappoe is not going. And I'm sure a conversation happened between him and Bryan Harsin. It had to have, because it's like, all right, I took you last year. I'm not taking you this year. I mean, that I think there could be some kind of unintentional storylines. And I mentioned this a few weeks ago when we had this conversation. It'd be really easy to make something of that, but it's Owen Pappoe. So it's like, I'm sure he's going to take it well if it's what's best for the team. Right. But you've got your folks that are going to be the best in front of the media. And then you've got your folks where it's like, it doesn't really matter. You just want them in front of a camera because it's Tank freaking Bigsby.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure Owen Pappoe is that guy though. So like Derick Hall plays both sides of that coin. He is one of your best players on defense. He is an NFL draft prospect, and he is well-spoken and has been out in front in terms of the media. I remember going to a rally at the Birmingham Bowl and listening to him hype the crowd up. He's taken on that vocal leadership that you would want. So I think he's earned
that's
that
what
right.
we saw. That's what we saw with Owen last year when it was just Owen and Bo. They only took 2 players because of COVID restrictions and things like that. And so that was just the biggest takeaway for me. Is like, I'm surprised that Owen Papo's not one of the 3. I think the 3 makes sense. Would love to know where Colby Wooden was in the pecking order of all that. Like, if you could take 5, would Colby Wooden be there? Like, I think he would. I think he would be. But all in all, I think Auburn fans are going to be really, really happy with the way these 3 guys represent their school.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, unintended storyline, Zach, kind of emblematic of like where we are as a program is that we did not take a quarterback. We're not sending a quarterback to media days. So again, there's a battle going on there. I think it's smart to keep them out because if you send a quarterback, you're declaring a starting quarterback.
Unless you take multiple, right? Unless you somehow want to take, your top 2 or your top, all 3. I don't know what that would look like. Yeah. But I mean, is there any way this offseason could have gone for Auburn to have taken a quarterback to media days? Like, could Finley have just blown it out in spring and separated himself? Like, they still wouldn't take him though, right?
No. I think that bringing Zach Calzada in changed that for sure, because that's a guy who started almost every game for his team last year, and you brought him in to compete. So if you take him to media days, that's a signal to the other guys that you're asking to compete through fall camp that the race is over. Right. So you don't want to send that message to your quarterback room right now. You want those guys to compete until the very end. That's why you don't take a quarterback. Yeah, no, I'm there with you. I'm there with you. But you got to think whoever wins the job this year will be representing Auburn at media days next year, 365 days from now, right? Unless one of them just blows it up and goes to the league, right? Which I think every Auburn fan would prefer that, right? I think every Auburn fan watching or listening would absolutely prefer that. But yeah, outside of that, I thought Nick Brahms maybe. Do you think it's interesting that everyone is super excited about this defense and there's so many questions about the offense, but there's 2 offensive guys going? Is that surprising at all? Everyone is super excited about the defense. The defense has got a lot of potential. They have a chance to build on what they did last year. I'm not sure that what side they took one from each, but ultimately it's just about taking the guys who have been outspoken that we've heard. Again, this list doesn't shock me. These guys are leaders in workouts. They're leaders in player-led practices. They're leaders in the film room. They are leaders in every single way for their team. And they've done the things that coaches look for. And they're trying to reset culture. These are the guys that represent the culture reset that Bryan Harsin has been talking about since he got to the Plains. Guys who show up on time, give 200% at everything that they do, and then hold their teammates accountable when they do not. We've heard some great stories about guys just getting into their teammates, man. And I've heard stories of all 3 of these guys getting into their teammates for not giving 100%. Yeah, I love that. What's the thing you always say? They return their shopping carts. Is that what you said? Yeah. All 3 of these guys return their shopping carts and they'll leave them out in the middle of the parking lot. I absolutely love that. All right, Mike G and I, we're going to now go through Auburn's 12-game slate this season and give our predictions of what we're thinking about those games right now. But first, I want to tell you about our friends at rockauto.com. Look, none of us like going to the car dealership to get our car fixed because we all know that we can't trust the pricing of what they're giving us, what we're actually purchasing with these parts. rockauto.com, that worry, it can go away. You don't need to worry about that anymore because rockauto.com, look, they're a family business. They've been serving do-it-yourselfers for a very, very long time. And if you compare, the prices of parts at the car dealership or even, the store down the street to what you are able to find at rockauto.com, it's not even comparable at all. So go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car, truck, or SUV. And write Locked On Auburn in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliable low prices, and all the parts your car will ever need. That is at rockauto.com.
Mike G of the War Rapport. Before we jump into our schedule predictions,
Okay.
What's going on these days at the War Rapport?
Interviews. We have done a million interviews this offseason, and we're not done yet. So coming up, we've got Keontae Scott this week.
Sweet.
A high-profile JUCO transfer. It's going to be in that defensive backfield. He sat down to talk with us. Great kid. And we got into the kicking room. So we've got Evan McGuire coming up next week to sit down and talk with some other people. Beyond that, I don't want to spoil it, but we've got great interviews. Subscribe on YouTube. Yep.
Just search the War Rapport. They will pop right up. All right. So let's don't waste any time. Mercer, San Jose State, the first two games. Is there anything to talk about there? You're not calling an upset there, right? Two wins.
I'm not calling an upset, but what I will say about these games is this is the get your stuff together zone.
Yeah.
Here, any kinks that you have in game plan, this is see where you're weak, and these are games that you want to execute. See how we're executing, and Lou Holtz and some of the talking heads of college football, they said the biggest jump for any team is between game 1 and game 2. Okay. So we jump from Mercer to San Jose State. You're what you're going to learn about your team, and there are small things that you can learn even in wins. I want to see how clean we execute. Can we play smash mouth football? Do they get away from the run like they did so many times, in the first quarter last year or after the first quarter last year?
Right.
It's going to be interesting to see if we can dominate the line of scrimmage against a weaker team. It didn't happen against Georgia State. It needs to happen against these two teams. So that's what we're looking for. These are wins, but what kind of wins are they going to be is still important to watch.
Yeah. You got to use those two games to get better. I don't care if you go out and beat them 50-0. Like if you beat them 50-0 and don't learn anything or don't get better, I'd rather struggle and win 21-17 and get better. Right. So that's a good note there. All right.
Yeah. I would also add, Zach, too, in the second half, you want to win these games in a fashion that allows you, especially this year, to get your quarterback some meaningful snaps.
Yeah.
In gameplay. You're back up.
But also, you're too deep at wide receiver. You want to see the younger offensive lineman. I mean, obviously quarterback, but every position for sure. All right, game 3, Penn State at home.
Okay, so we got shredded by their quarterback last year. He had the game of his life. He went 20 for 22. Sean Clifford did, and he's back. He's back for his 9th year at Penn State.
Jahan Dotson is not back, though.
But he is not back, right? So I underestimated Dotson last year, admittedly. Penn State fans jumped all over me, but I recognize his greatness in hindsight.
Good. The NFL did too. Yeah.
So I'm not sure they have another one on the roster. Their fans made a big deal about their running backs last year. I felt like Noah Kane and the other dude were not a better tandem than Bigsby and Sarquez. Yeah, okay, but nothing to scream at. Being here in Auburn is going to be a significant advantage. Yeah, I mean, playing at Penn State last year was the whiteout was incredible. It was a hard environment, and it was a close game. It was a one-score game. We lost by 8 points, made some mistakes, fumbled, in our own territory. They've got to erase the mistakes. This is a game that you can afford to lose. If you're going to lose any one of these first 5 games, you lose this one.
Yeah, this is the one.
Yep. This is the one. So Penn State, I think it'll be competitive. I'm iffy. It, again, just depends. How do we look those first 2 games? Do we look like we have it together, or are we going into Penn State with question marks after 2 cream puffs?
Yeah. Yeah, I think Auburn wins, but if you ask me next week, I may say that they lose. I go back and forth on this all the time.
Yeah, so, I'm going to put this in the win category, but just barely.
Yeah, I'm there with you. All right, the next one, this game isn't being talked about, and which is weird because we talk a ton about the first 5 games. And the asterisk next to that is, when first 5 games, you really mean Penn State and LSU. But Missouri at home for the 4th game, that is an important game. That if you lose that game, it really, really messes things up. You shouldn't. The fact that Missouri's not very good, the fact that it's at home, there's a lot of things about this game that point to Auburn's favor. And I think that's why Auburn fans are overlooking it. But that still doesn't make it less important. This is a must-win game, regardless of how the Penn State game goes.
Agreed. This is this year's South Carolina.
Okay.
This is this year's South Carolina. This is a game you absolutely have to win. You've marked it. It's your homecoming game. Always sucks when you lose homecoming, but you mark this game homecoming. This is another momentum game. This is your easiest win in the SEC this year. You have to get this game. Auburn should dominate this game defensively, and then offensively, we just need to see that MVP, that minimum viable product on the field to win every game. So you got to raise the floor. Right. The floor was just way too low offensively. The floor was Georgia State. It was South Carolina. It was Texas A&M where we didn't score a touchdown. You can't have those types of games. You cannot struggle against bad teams offensively. You should be able to dominate the line of scrimmage. They should know what we're doing, and you should still be able to beat them. Right. You have to win this game decisively.
All right. And then rounding out that 5-game stretch, the 5-game homestand to start things off, LSU. I'm low on LSU this year. There's 2 SEC teams that I think – there's really 3 SEC teams that I think a lot of people are overrating. Ole Miss, LSU, and Arkansas. Ole Miss is interesting, though, because, like, even I think they could still easily go 9-3 just the way their schedule falls. So, but as far as, like, actual play on the field, I think LSU's getting too much love, and I don't think Auburn's getting enough love. And I think Auburn will prove that. I think Auburn proves that, and I think there's a really good chance Auburn starts 5-0.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Listen, LSU is living off the ghosts of 2019 a little bit too much.
Joe Burrow's not there anymore, guys.
And Joe Brady is not there anymore. We saw what effect that had. Their passing game coordinator and co-offensive coordinator is gone. So, they've still got Miles Brennan. Did he stay?
Yeah, he's there.
I think LSU picked up Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, the Arizona State quarterback.
And they've got some guys who have played some games. I've seen Jaden Daniels play live. And I mean, the kid is his freshman year. They've got talent. LSU has talent, but they also lost a lot when Orgeron left. So the portal beat them up. So they had some key players leave. And the defense last year had a lot of holes in it. It was one of their worst pass defenses we've seen in a really long time. People talk about Auburn, but LSU is another team in this league that's getting the benefit of the doubt. And the truth is they have just as many question marks as Auburn does going into this season.
I actually think they have more. But for some reason, just hiring Brian Kelly really fired him up. And I think Brian Kelly is going to be really successful there.
Yep.
I don't know if he's going to be successful in 2022.
Right. But year one, it's year one. So let's see what kind of year one an established coach has in the SEC West.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. These aren't his players yet. All right. And then let's go halfway through the schedule at Georgia. I don't think there's a chance. I just don't think there's a chance at all.
Okay. So never say never.
Okay.
But right now, you have to put this as an L on the schedule. This is an L. I'm not going to say that we cannot. There's no way we can win, but it's going to depend on a lot of what happens in those first 5 games. Do you have established quarterback play? Are you able to establish the line of scrimmage in the run game? If Auburn is not doing those things going into Georgia, we definitely lose. So, if quarterback is still in flux and we can't run the ball, I'm with you. It's an L. But I can see us making this game competitive if the first 5 home games go according to schedule. But it's hard to look at this and see a win right now where we sit. So I'm going to go with a loss on this one.
I'm there with you. There's a lot of folks that are having the Georgia and the Alabama being like the 2 L's, but you could talk me into an upset at Bama way more than you could talk me into an upset in Athens.
Right.
You agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yep.
All right. We go through the last half of the schedule in just a moment. Want to tell you about our friends at Built Bar. They've got a flavor out coconut brownie chunk puff, and people are loving it. People are absolutely loving it. The coconut brownie chunk Built Bar flavor you love in a deliciously chewy, marshmallowy, covered in 100% real chocolate. It's like a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. But stop drooling and listen. It's good for you. Low calorie, low sugar, high in protein, all delicious. All you have to do to check out this flavor or any other flavor, go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off. That is at built.com. All right, Mike G, after Auburn goes to Georgia, they then turn around and go west to the state of Mississippi to take on the Ole Miss Rebels. And just real quick, so this stint right here, there's a 3-game stint, and there's a bye week in the middle of it. So 3-game stint across 4 weeks after they play Georgia. You go to Ole Miss, you take a week off, you host Arkansas, and you go to Mississippi State. This 3-week stretch is incredibly important because Auburn could go 3-0 across these 3 games. They could go 0-3 across these 3 games, and then any combination in between there. So they start things off at Ole Miss. I said it before. I don't think Ole Miss will be near as good as they were a year ago. Somehow, I mean, Auburn just kind of whooped them at Jordan Hare last year, and that was one of their best seasons that they've ever had. So I'm hesitant to say that this is a loss, Mike G. My gut tells me that it is, but I don't really understand why I feel that way about it.
Yeah, it's important to note that we won this game. And not only did we beat them decisively, it was a top 10 victory for Auburn last year. We beat them and did nothing offensively after the first half. Auburn scored 3 points after the half. Our defense buckled in. And this was kind of the start, Zach, of us seeing, hey, man, we have some problems on offense in the second half of games. That trend continued down the rest of the schedule after Ole Miss. I'm going to put this in the W column, and here's why.
Okay.
We have a quarterback on our roster that he wasn't here, but he is established in the SEC. And even with the best quarterback prospect that they've had in a while, they couldn't beat Auburn. I think our defense plays up to par. Mm-hmm. I think Ole Miss has an advantage being a home game, but I'm going to put this in the W column. At this point in the season, you know what kind of football team you're going to be. This is it. You have to play to your strengths and cover your weaknesses at this point. You're not going to get significantly better at anything, and hopefully you're still pretty healthy at this point. But I'm going to put this in the W column. This is a team we beat last year. I don't think that we're worse. I think that Auburn is better so far. I think they'll be better defensively. W for me here.
Okay. And then Arkansas at home. I think in a similar vein, you went to Arkansas and kind of took it to them, arguably one of the better performances of the season outside of the Ole Miss game. Mm-hmm. And you get them at home this year. And I don't really see this being that big of a game. I think Auburn's going to take care of business against Arkansas at home. I'm not buying into the stock of the Arkansas Razorbacks this year.
I'm with you. Again, this was a game. We got great quarterback play against Arkansas last year. We hit the deep ball, and because we're hitting the deep ball, all the other parts of the offense, they couldn't load the box to stop Tank. And we saw some things. Bo made some great plays with his legs at points where he ran one in from like 20 yards out. It
was a good game. Yeah, I mean, it was just a good game plan. Right.
Yeah, it was one of our most complete performances. And I it's hard to put this in the L column because am I looking at Arkansas and thinking that they have improved substantially since last year? Now, KJ Jefferson, if he makes the jump as a quarterback, I thought we handled him quite well last year. If he improves year over year, then this could be a dogfight this year. But I have to give the Tigers the edge here. Right now, at this point, we won this game last year. We won it handily. And even if they catch up a little bit, if Auburn plays to that level this year, I don't see how you lose this one.
Yeah. All right. And then the last game of that 3-game stretch at Mississippi State. Once again, I think Mississippi State, I don't think they're as good of a team as Auburn. I think Auburn's the better team. And I just think there's going to be revenge in the minds of this locker room. They have not forgotten 28-3, that 28-3 loss, or they blew the 28-3 lead rather. And I think they're going to be ready for this. And I just think there's going to be a point, Mike G, where the Mike Leach air raid offense takes a step back in conference play. And I don't know if it's this season. I thought it was going to be last season. It could be this season. It could be next season, but that will eventually happen. And I'm just kind of expecting it to happen soon.
Yeah. Listen, if we win this game, it's going to be I think this will be a shootout. I think Auburn wins the shootout. Will Rogers is a top 3 quarterback in this league. He is supremely accurate. He throws the deep ball at a 45% clip. He's an NFL prospect. They don't have much of a run game. You know what they're going to do. They're going to dink and dunk you, and he's going to take his shots just like any other quarterback takes down the field. This is going to test the secondary, Auburn secondary. We had holes in times defending people in the secondary and letting quarterbacks carve us up at times. I'm going to put this one in the L column.
Okay.
Probably going to surprise some folks here, but I'm going to put this one in the L column. I think at some point it's the SEC West. Somebody just beats you. And I think, if we're going to lose a game, it's going to be to a top 3 quarterback in the league. So I close game, but I'll put this one in the L column for Auburn.
All right. And then we're about out of time. So we'll go a little bit quicker these last few. Texas A&M at home. I think this is a loss, but there are certain things that could happen. This could be the Zach Calzada Bowl. He could, play the game of his life, maybe against his former team. I think that'd be awesome. But I think this is a loss right now.
Yeah, Calzada's got revenge on his mind, baby.
Let's go.
I'm putting this one in the W column. Auburn gets the win at home versus Texas A&M. He wants this one. We interviewed him. He talked about it. He's got that. Is something about that, having that thing. They didn't play well last year. Their offensive line still has a lot of question marks. If Auburn can get pressure on whoever's back there, Haynes King, Max Johnson, I think that we could see something happen there. So I'm going W here.
Okay. And then Western Kentucky, that'll be good. The Marcus Bragg game. And then at Alabama, I think this is a loss. But once again, if you wanted to talk me into an upset at Alabama, I'm more okay with that than I am with a potential upset at Georgia. So,
yeah, listen, Auburn's defense did a bang-up job on Alabama's offensive line. I'll be interested to see if the offensive line that had the second worst pass protection in the league improved significantly year over year. I expect the Tigers to get after them. I think at this point, if our offense is still playing at a high level, watch out for the Tigers. This is definitely an L on the schedule.
Yeah. All right. And then, that gets us to where it is. So, I mean, 9-3, 8-4 is reasonable. It's possible here.
Possible.
So for everybody saying that, Auburn's going to stink and go 5-7 or 6-6. Like I think we've laid out a path that makes sense. It's not too much of a reach to go 8-4 or 9-3. So
yeah. Bottom line, closing remarks. Nobody outside of Georgia ran Auburn off the field last year. So this schedule projection is kind of making the assumption that they turn around some of the late game breakdowns that we had down the stretch last year. If they can fix those late game breakdowns, I think you see, an 8-9 win team this year.
Yeah. Some of that's a depth thing, and I don't know how much better that is, but we'll have to see. Mike G, one more time, how can people find you, hear you, watch you, all that stuff?
YouTube.com, search the War Report, hit subscribe. We got lots of great things coming for you guys.
Fantastic stuff. That's Mike G of the War Rapport. Tomorrow, it's a Cruton Thursday with John Garcia of Sports Illustrated and Locked On Recruiting Insider. You can read all of my written work at auburndaily.com. If you made it to this point in the video, you must have liked what you've seen. Please click that subscribe button down below. And we'll see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Auburn.